The moment Neferet took her last breath, she felt reality dissolve around her. Familiar shapes darkened, the echo of voices hushed, and a new stillness settled on her senses. She found herself standing in a vast hall, carved from a dark stone that shimmered like polished obsidian. Faint torchlight flickered on the walls, revealing scenes of distant pharaohs and ancient scribes. At her feet, a carpet of black sand extended in all directions, and somewhere in the distance, water trickled in a low, persistent murmur. She could not recall what had brought her here. The ache in her memory evoked the last moments when a fever had robbed her of breath, but now a serene numbness calmed her body. Her eyes traced the high-vaulted ceiling, where faint constellations flickered like trapped stars. A breeze that felt as though it carried the breath of centuries drifted through the hall, and the flickering torchlight revealed the silhouette of an archway on the far side. Neferet stepped forward, her feet making no sound upon the black sand. As she approached the archway, her heart pounded with a soft, rhythmic expectancy. Something called to her from beyond, an inexorable pull, like a hush from beyond the horizon. She glanced backward, instinct telling her to cling to the known world. But there was no known world anymore. Only this strange threshold in a realm where time seemed as intangible as smoke. She stepped through the archway and entered a corridor lined with monumental statues. Each figure towered solemnly above her, carved from ages-old stone, bearing fierce, regal faces. A lioness crowned with a sun disk, a jackal upright on its haunches, and a vulture with folded wings, symbols of power, guardians of transition. Their sunken eyes appeared to follow her as she walked. Soft, whispering voices emanated from unseen corners. She strained to understand them. They were fragments of prayers and incantations, half forgotten, swirling in the musty air. She heard fleeting words of forgiveness, of pleas for safe passage. She remembered the stories told in the temple, the tall papyri unraveling the path of the deceased. She had once read them with reverence, never imagining she would traverse that path herself so soon. Eventually, the corridor opened to a vast circular chamber, the floor inlaid with a mosaic of turquoise and gold. In the center stood an imposing figure, a man's body adorned in regal linen, and above his firm shoulders rose the head of a falcon, sharp eyes glinting with authority. Neferet felt her breath catch in her throat. Her life in the mortal realm might have ended, but awe and fear still stirred within. This had to be the judge of the underworld who decided the fate of souls. Around him sat a row of lesser spirits, quiet watchers bearing silent witness to the judgments passed in this sacred space. Beneath the falcon-headed judge's left arm, balanced in an ornate golden cradle, was an hourglass filled not with sand, but with something that glowed and pulsated like slivers of the night sky. Tiny sparks cascaded downward, swirling in mesmerizing patterns. The chamber was lit with a spectral luminosity from these starry grains. It made Neferet think of all her nighttime vigils, gazing at the sky from her humble rooftop, wondering what mysteries the constellations held. Now she was face to face with that very starlight-made substance, held in an hourglass that would determine her fate. She knelt, pressing her forehead to the cool mosaic floor, as she had been taught to do in the presence of a god. When she looked up, the judge's gaze was steady and unrelenting, yet not devoid of a certain measure of compassion. He gestured for her to rise. A hush fell upon the watchers gathered around the perimeter, as though they waited for an ancient rite about to unfold. Neferet stood, her heart quickening. She could hear the trickle within the hourglass, soft, almost musical, like a lullaby of distant cosmic currents. She knew the legends of weighing the heart. In times past, it was said that the heart would be placed upon the scales against a feather. But here, in this retelling, the heart was to be measured against the shifting star fields within an hourglass. A new approach, or perhaps an older, more primordial method. Either way, she could not escape it. "You stand before the Keeper of Justice," intoned a voice from somewhere in the shadows. "You shall submit your heart to be weighed against the hourglass of starlight. Truth will be revealed." She stepped closer, unsure where to place her hands, feeling strangely naked despite the linen dress she still wore from her burial day. Finally, she pressed both palms against her chest, speaking in a voice that trembled. "Neferet, daughter of Hazim, come to be judged." The falcon-headed judge studied her. His eyes, dark orbs flecked with amethyst light, focused intently, and for a moment Neferet sensed he saw not merely her face, but the entire tapestry of her life. A flutter of panic stole through her. She recalled the mistakes, the resentful words, the petty theft of a measure of wheat during a year of famine, all those secrets she had managed to keep hidden from mortal eyes. Now, in the presence of divine justice, those shadows would be laid bare. He extended a hand, and a subtle force tugged at her. She gasped as her chest felt momentarily transparent, and beneath her palms something moved. Like a swirling mass of color, her heart emerged from her breast, edged in a crimson glow, yet still somehow intangible. It rested upon her palms, warming them from within. In this place, physical and spiritual realities interwove, and Neferet realized she was holding her very essence. At the center of the chamber, a low pedestal rose from the floor, carved with hieroglyphs that spoke of cosmic balance. The falcon-headed judge lifted the hourglass, starlight swirling with an ethereal hum. He set it gently upon one half of the pedestal and then motioned for her to place her heart on the other side. She stepped forward, a tremor in her limbs, and laid the glowing heart upon the cool surface. Time seemed to slow. The watchers leaned forward in silent witness. Drifting from the hourglass came a faint resonance, as if a celestial chord had reverberated through the cosmic firmament. Sparks of starlight shimmered out of the hourglass and arched over to envelop Neferet's heart, swirling in gentle currents. She felt it in the pit of her stomach, a sensation as though an invisible hand was sifting through her memories, her desires, her regrets. All at once, the hourglass glowed brighter, and a pathway opened in Neferet's mind. She saw herself as a child, running through the market, skipping beside her mother. She saw her father's proud smile when she first read an inscription from a sacred papyrus. She saw an old woman she had once ignored begging for alms, and how guilt had caught her in the chest afterward. She felt a wrenching heartbreak when she had lost her beloved friend to a fever. Over and over, scenes of her life cycled through her awareness, each memory weighed. The swirling lights grew more intense, and then, guided by a silent command, the falcon-headed judge lifted the hourglass. Starlight continued to trickle from the upper chamber to the lower in a steady stream. As it flowed, the pedestal on which her heart rested began to tilt, searching for equilibrium. A hush fell across the watchers, each holding their breath for the final measure. In that moment, Neferet realized this was about more than the sum of her deeds. It was about her intentions, her sincerity in forgiveness, her willingness to love and seek justice. Perhaps the starry grains would reveal whether her heart was aligned with cosmic truth. She tried to anchor herself in her better moments. Every time she had helped feed a hungry child, every time she offered a kind word to a lonely elder, every time she extended compassion rather than lowered her eyes. Yet she could not stop the swirl of guilt for those times she failed. Gradually, the hourglass of starlight balanced upon the pedestal, neither side sinking nor rising. Instead, the starlight enveloped her heart in a cocoon of shimmering light. She held her breath, uncertain of the outcome. Around her, the watchers began to murmur with a mix of wonder and disquiet, as though this outcome was rare. The falcon-headed judge spoke at last. His voice resonated with a deep, measured calm. "Your heart carries both darkness and light, Neferet. The starlight weighs your truths, your secrets, and your regrets, searching for harmony with the cosmic order. It remains in the balance. She swallowed. Am I to be cast into oblivion? Or shall I pass on safely to the next realm? She could barely manage the words, fearing the final verdict. With a careful tilt, the judge poured the last grains of light from the top portion of the hourglass. As they cascaded down, the starry dust illuminated Neferet's heart with ethereal luminance, pulsing in time with her every trembling breath. The falcon-headed figure rested one hand lightly on the heart, as though to reassure it, and raised his hawk-like eyes to meet Neferet's. To understand your final measure, you must see how your life's threads have bound you, he said. We journey through your memories to behold your truth. With those words, the starlight flared brightly and the chamber dissolved around them. Suddenly, she stood in an orchard from her childhood. The sun was golden over the fruit trees, and the sweet tang of ripe figs hung in the air. She heard giggling as a girl darted behind a trunk, her braids whipping around her shoulders. Her mother's voice floated on the breeze, calling for her to come inside. Neferet realized with a jolt that she was watching herself at 8 years old. She saw the young Neferet dash across the orchard, ignoring her mother's summons to climb a gnarled sycamore. Moments later, the branch gave way and she plummeted to the ground. A surge of pain crossed her face, tears welling as her mother rushed over to comfort her. That memory of unconditional love shone like a bright star in the night sky, reminding her of life's tenderness. It resonated with hope and with the sense that love, in all its forms, anchored mortal hearts to the cosmic current of goodness. The orchard scene faded, replaced by a dimly lit street corner. Moonlight illuminated the back of a squat building, and a teenage Neferet knelt beside a clay jar, measuring out wheat that did not belong to her. Her father had little money, the harvest was slim, and in her desperation, she had stolen from a neighbor. A pang of shame twisted in Neferet's chest. The memory felt fresh, raw, even in this afterlife. She remembered how her father had discovered her theft a few days later and scolded her with tears in his eyes, warning her that even petty wrongdoing sows bigger seeds of harm. Next came the memory of that old woman she had ignored in the marketplace. The woman's voice, dry and rasping, had pleaded for a morsel of bread or a few coins. She had turned away hurriedly. Though she felt regret, her mind had rationalized it was not her place to help everyone. Yet in truth, compassion had failed her in that moment. As memory after memory played out, Neferet perceived the complexities of her life. She had tried to do good, tried to obey the gods' instructions, but she had also succumbed to selfish impulses. She had known heartbreak, endured illnesses, but she had also found joy in small gestures of kindness. Through it all, the starlight glimmered with each good deed, each moment of sincerity, and dimmed when she turned from those in need. She felt the interplay as it resonated around her, both exalting and condemning, weaving a tapestry of her spirit. In the end, the orchard, the marketplace, the lonely nights reading papyri by lamplight, all merged into a singular mosaic. The illusions peeled away, returning Neferet to the circular chamber in the underworld. The watchers remained unmoving, as though they had been suspended in time, waiting for her vantage to realign with theirs. She looked to the pedestal. Her heart still glowed with a crimson light, entwined in silver threads of starlight. The falcon-headed judge lifted the hourglass, observing how the last grains had settled. He turned his gaze to Neferet. Free will shapes the measure of each heart, he said with a grave finality. You have stumbled, daughter of Hazim, and you have lifted others. In cosmic balance, your heart's weight hovers close to the luminous path, yet it yearns for further resolution, a final act of grace. Neferet's voice quavered. What must I do? The judge set the hourglass upon the pedestal, and its starlight flared once more. The path onward can be walked only by a heart that holds no illusions. There is one last step in your judge. He motioned toward a low passageway at the far end of the chamber. Enter, and confront that which you fear. There, your choice shall tip the balance. Though fear pulsed in her veins, Neferet bowed and stepped away from the pedestal. The watchers parted to allow her passage. One by one, tall shadows flickered across her vision, and the pit of her stomach twisted with anticipation. The corridor beyond the low passage sloped downward, and the air grew heavy, cloaked in a purple haze. Her footsteps resounded softly against the polished stone. She felt her heart, or the intangible sense of it, beating in her chest, though the physical organ remained behind on the pedestal. Perhaps, she thought, her heart existed in two places simultaneously, on the threshold of cosmic scales and within her interior self, always guiding her. Light soon faded, and the corridor emptied into a small cavern. A single torch burned in the center, casting wavering shadows on the walls. Before her stood a gaunt figure robed in tattered linen. Its face was human, yet hollow, eyes sunken under ridges of bone. In its withered hands it held a chalice carved from obsidian. As Neferet approached, the figure's voice scratched the silence. "I am the keeper of doubt," it said. "From me flows the poison of regret and fear. Drink and see if your heart succumbs to blame and despair." She trembled. Legend spoke of vile potions in the afterlife that concealed illusions or tormented the unworthy. Had the falcon-headed judge truly meant for her to face this challenge? Or was this a trick, a final test meant to prove her worth? "Why would I drink?" she asked, holding her arms close. The keeper of doubt's mouth twisted in a weary smile. "Within this realm, illusions can linger. That which you fail to acknowledge can destroy you." It extended the chalice, the dark liquid inside reflecting the torchlight with an oily sheen. "You must hold your darkest fears, regrets, and resentments close, and see them for what they are. Only then will your heart find its true weight." Neferet reached out, hand trembling, holding the chalice to her lips. The stench was acrid, like burnt incense mixed with decay. She closed her eyes and poured it into her mouth. It was ice cold, and as it touched her tongue, a wave of nausea and terror surged through her body. She felt every regret intensify, every secret sin tear at her soul, as though the watery boundary between her and all her darkest thoughts dissolved. She collapsed to her knees, the chalice clattering to the floor. Images consumed her mind. That old woman's pleading eyes, her father's sorrowful face, the child she never had time to comfort, the friend she couldn't save from sickness. Her failings roared in her mind, each taking shape in the darkness like an accusing spectre. Pain lanced through her, twisting her insides. She sobbed, wanting to escape, to run, but there was nowhere to go. Only this solemn confrontation with everything she had buried. From the pit of that despair, a fragment of light awakened. She remembered the orchard and how her mother's love had healed her hurt. She recalled the times she found forgiveness, for others and for herself, and the day she left an extra portion of bread at the temple for hungry travelers. If her heart was to be truly balanced, she had to acknowledge these moments too. Yes, she had sinned, but she had also loved. Yes, she had withheld kindness, but she had also offered it freely before. The darkness was only a part of her story. Gradually, the swirling illusions that hammered at her mind began to lose their grip. Her trembling abated. She breathed in, conjuring the simple memory of kindly eyes, warm embraces, small gestures of goodwill. The screeching voices of guilt receded, replaced by a calm acceptance of the wholeness of her life. Her sins would always be part of her history, but so would the good she had done, and that acceptance seemed to form a bulwark against despair. When she opened her eyes, she found herself alone in the cavern. The keeper of doubt had vanished, leaving behind the overturned chalice that slowly evaporated into black mist. The torch flickered gently. Neferet placed a hand over her renewed sense of a heartbeat. She wanted to cry with relief, but a peaceful assurance coursed through her instead. The hourglass test was not about punishing imperfection. It was about seeking truth, that elusive balance between darkness and light. She retraced her steps up the sloping corridor, the hush of the underworld pressing around her. When she reached the circular chamber, the watchers regarded her with quiet expectation. She moved closer to the pedestal, heart hammering only slightly. The falcon-headed judge gazed at her with an inscrutable expression. The hourglass of starlight glowed softly. Her heart, still resting in its luminous cocoon, appeared subtly altered, pulsing with renewed vigor, as though it had been tempered by the ordeal. The judge lifted the hourglass once again. The starry sands shimmered, and with a gentle tilt he let them cascade into the lower chamber. The cosmic dust surrounded her heart, warming it into a bright, steady glow. The pedestal sank a fractional degree and then balanced, no further tilt disturbing its harmony. A hush spread across the watchers, a hush that seemed to envelop the entire hall. The judge spoke with the rhythm of an ancient river. "You have seen your darkness and your light. In that honesty, you have found the path to strength. Your heart is now light enough to ascend." Relief flooded Neferet, tears gathering at the corners of her eyes. She dared to hope that she would not be dashed into oblivion or devoured by beasts. Instead, the hourglass's glimmer seemed to confirm that she had reached acceptance, clarity of who she was, neither perfect nor damned, but forever shaped by the choices she made. It was as if the cosmic balance recognized her sincere remorse and the seeds of compassion within her spirit. She felt the starry currents sweep around her, and she offered thanks in silent prayer. When the falcon-headed judge returned her heart to her chest, she gasped at the gentle warmth blossoming in her core. The watchers nodded solemnly, as though acknowledging a rightful passage. In the subtle light, she could see joy reflected in some of their eyes. A final metamorphosis took place in the hourglass. All the starry grains, having weighed her heart, now seemed to rise, swirling in reverse, bridging upward in a luminescent funnel from the lower chamber to the upper. The funnel expanded, and she watched in awe as it extended, forming a column of celestial light that rose and fanned outward like a portal. A path of dissolving starlight stretched before her, beckoning with quiet promise. The judge motioned for her to ascend. "Go, Neferet, daughter of Hazim. Cross this threshold. Beyond lies the realm of the blessed, where your soul shall continue its journey. May you keep the truth you have learned, for it shall guide you in all worlds." Neferet nodded, eyes brimming with gratitude and relief. She stepped onto the path of light. The starry sands shimmered beneath her feet, reflecting prismatic hues in every direction. For a moment, she turned back to look upon that solemn chamber, the watchers, and the regal falcon-headed figure presiding over her fate. A quiet reverence filled her heart as she recognized she had traversed a truth hidden in every mortal, that acceptance of both one's virtues and failings lays the foundation for renewal. Then she took another step, and the cosmic glow enveloped her completely. She felt weightless. The starlight buoyed her, whispering promises of new beginnings. In an instant, the scene of the underworld fell away, replaced by a vast firmament of glittering constellations. Warmth and possibility extended in every direction. She drifted amid shimmering currents, letting them carry her forward. In that expanse, she sensed the vitality of her heart, beating in harmony with all creation, the souls that had come before her and those that would follow. She felt a gentle lullaby of celestial music echoing in her bones, and she understood something profound. The universe balanced every heart, not to judge them as merely worthy or unworthy, but to allow each soul to see itself truly and to evolve. So she went on, moving toward an unseen horizon, far beyond mortal comprehension. She left behind the hall, the watchers, and the falcon-headed judge. Yet, in her restored heart, she carried the memory of that way station and the hourglass of starlight that tested her soul. In that memory, she would forever possess the truth of herself, that darkness exists alongside light, that every regret can transform into wisdom, and that sincere compassion for others and oneself is the ultimate key to transcendence.